One of our emphases is for sure on children and making sure that children have high quality early childhood education. So I guess what makes it special is that we are a space where children, they're able to be themselves, right? We're not confined by whatever ideas of school.
Hello everyone, welcome to Talk with YouZai. We are very honored to have Dr. Tran Templeton joining us today. Yeah, we are really excited to learn from your experience. And could you please start by introduce yourself?
My name is Tran Templeton. I am an assistant professor at Teachers College, Columbia University, and the faculty co-director of the Rita Gold Center, which is an on-site university-affiliated childcare center. And I work alongside Dr. Amanda Fellner and Lizelle Conke, who is our on-site director.
Thank you. So could you please tell us more about the mission and vision of the Rita Gold Center?
Sure. One of our emphases is for sure on children and making sure that children have high quality early childhood education, in that we are really centering curriculum around children's interests and around children's needs and what they care about and what they think about in the world. So that's one thing. Another thing is that we see families and parents as experts in children's lives, so that we're actually partnering with families rather than telling families what to do. We're having conversations and collaborating with families to make sure that there's no disconnect between school and home. So there's the child, there's the family, and then there's the curriculum. So making sure that we are engaging in play-based, child-centered, emergent curriculums. We are not predetermining curriculum. We think about curriculum as growing from the children's collective interests or their individual interests. We want to be able to be an inclusive, culturally relevant center. That's sort of in our long-term goals, to be more inclusive of children with varying abilities and to really respond to children's cultural and social backgrounds.
Would you like to share what make the Rita Gold Center special and compared to other schools?
Sure. I love the Rita Gold Center. It's the one place that I go to whenever I'm feeling stressed, because it's a space where I see that children actually have freedom and agency, and that I can see them outside of, that I'm not seeing them as students. I'm actually seeing them as people. Mm-hmm. And when you see children as people, there's more respect for children. There's more of a reciprocal relationship versus a hierarchical relationship. We're always teaching and learning alongside them. I think of them as my friend. I think of the children from the time they're 2 months to 5 years as my friends. I talk to them like they're my friends. We have a good time. We have fun together. So I guess what makes it special is that we are a space where children, they're able to be themselves, right? And they don't have to conform to school standards. They're not seen as students, right? They're not judged as good or bad. They're able to relate to each other. I think the ways that the children and adults relate to each other here is really special, because we do talk to children as people. They call us by our first names. I think indicative of that sort of non-hierarchical relationship. It doesn't mean that we don't tell them to go use the bathroom or to take a nap now or to eat. It's the children understand that those are things that's part of the routine. It's things that we think are important for them and important for our relationships with each other. So I think the emphasis on relationships is what makes us different.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Rita Gold Center is really appreciative about the relationship with parents and teachers. Mm-hmm. I know the Rita Gold Center is operating for children, parents, educators, and also the researchers. How could you balance the relationship with everyone?
So the way it gets balanced for me and for Dr. Fellner, who is my faculty co-director, and for Lizelle, who's our on-site director, is the research that we are doing at the center needs to still align with our philosophy and our ideologies around children. Mm-hmm. We don't usually support research that is about experimenting on children. Because we are about relationships, research also has to be about relationships. It has to be about understanding the environment more deeply than just coming in, doing an experiment or some kind of intervention and leaving, because context matters in research. Mm-hmm. So our research generally is qualitative, where we're really trying to understand what's happening. So last year we had a study and it's actually continuing. We're studying how the service dog that accompanies one of our teachers, how the service dog is integrated into this space, and how the children make sense of the service dog as a dog that is both working and also playing. So we are studying just what happens to the center space when a more than human entity comes into it. It's helping us think about inclusivity. It's helping us think about what else schools can be like. That's another special thing about the center, is that we're not confined by whatever ideas of school we have imagined, right? When somebody introduces a new idea, like I need to have a dog with me because I have a disability, our initial response is not to say, oh no, we can't do that, because that's not what school is. Our initial response is, sure, absolutely. Like it helps you feel you need that, and we're going to figure out a way to, make it work. So I guess in short, my answer is the way that we balance it is by thinking about relationships as also central to research. It can't just be an experimental study. It's not just quantitative, but it's really about understanding the culture of the environment and what things we're doing within it that support inclusivity and support belonging.
As the co-director of Rita Go Center, what are the most rewarding aspects for your work?
Oh my gosh. I think I mentioned it earlier. When I am stressed out or I need inspiration, I come to the center and I see all the children. It's inspiring for me. It inspires my work. So it's the relationships that I have with the children that drive me, and the relationships I have with the teachers. I love coming into the space and hearing stories about what happened earlier that day, or getting to tell a story about what I saw. So the relationships that we have among adults is also very special here, because our relationships are really centered around stories about the children, and you can tell that the children are at the center of our work and not academics, which is okay. It's okay for us to talk about academics, and we do talk about curriculum, but we most often talk about the children, and we talk about the children with each other. We tell stories to the families. So that's the most rewarding part. I'm very fortunate to have this space where I can daily connect to children. So that's my favorite thing.
Nice. So what makes you keep working on early childhood education?
I guess the reason I went into early childhood education is because, let me back up. So I began my career in special education. So I taught children who were 7 to 11 years old in classrooms and schools that were self-contained. And so all the children were labeled with some kind of disability. Even then, my emphasis was relationships, because honestly, some days were so difficult because the children had lots of feelings. That's normal. And the ways that I could make progress as a teacher was to know who they were as people first. So that was sort of the first few years of my career was in special education. That's where I really developed my philosophy of teaching. That teaching is not about the worksheets and the official curriculum, but it's about the ways that we're connected to each other or not. So I continued to pursue special education. I went to the University of Washington to get my doctorate in special education. The emphasis at the time was interventions and ways of fixing children. That didn't feel great for me. So then I went away to Guatemala and worked as a school director for 4 years at a school with a relationship-based model for children with disabilities. We took in children who were 3 years old, and that's when I discovered 3-year-olds. And I was like, oh my God, 3-year-olds are amazing. The ways they think, like just the ways that what's happening in their bodies and with their language, everything. You get to see just like a human being being a human being, and not being a student, not being something that somebody else wants them to be, right? 3-year-olds are not going to be who you want them to be. They're going to be themselves. And that's when I decided to pursue a program in early childhood. And so I came to do my doctorate here at Teachers College. And I started Teachers College here in the preschool room. I had a lot of anxieties at first about being a preschool teacher, because I thought I would have to sing preschool songs and talk to children like high-pitched voice. Hi, friends, I thought that's not my personality. So I came here and didn't have to sing preschool songs. Like, I don't know any preschool songs. When in this classroom, we were playing the Beatles, we were playing, contemporary rock songs. I learned that there was a different way to do preschool. Mm-hmm. And it was a way of doing preschool that didn't emphasize structures, didn't emphasize a sense of normalcy, and also allowed me to be myself. So for me, it's a perfect place where you really can be yourself in the space, both the children and the teachers. Our readable children develop a little differently because they were in a space where they could discover themselves. Whereas sometimes children never get to discover themselves. And so it's not until they're adults that they realize, oh, this is who I am. This is how I learn. This is what I like to do. The children here, they leave here knowing who they are and then having to negotiate school. But at least we've given them a sense of, that sense of like, I know who I am. I know what I like. I know what I care about. And I think that that's important.
Thank you, Tran. So before we end up our talk, could you please share some advice to the educator or parents or researchers who is working or with early childhood education?
That it's important to understand children on their terms, not based on our desires, not based on what we think they should be doing or who we think they are, who we'd like for them to be. So for me, the advice always is to stop what you're doing as an adult. Just stop asking them to perform knowledge. We don't need to ask them like, where's your nose? Can you count to 10 for me? Just stop doing that and watch what they're actually doing. Because there we can actually see like something actually amazing that we don't get to see when we're asking them questions that ask them to perform their knowledge. So that's what I would say.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tran, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. We're trained to assess instead of training to observe in order to see what else we can do to support children. We take these things for granted because that's how we did it. That's how we were taught. But we don't have to do it that way. We can still follow the curriculum, but teach it differently because no child wants to feel upset. It's not like they come to school and say, I'd really like to mess up everybody's day today. They don't want that, right? It's just that they can't